This episode is proudly sponsored by Indigenous Business Australia, who serves, partners and invests with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who want to own their own future.
Black Magic Woman podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on. We also acknowledge traditional owners of the land where you, the listener or viewer, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to our elders past and present and acknowledge that this always was Aboriginal land and always will be Aboriginal land.
Welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast with Mundanara Bales.
Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Black Magic Woman and IBA Partnership Series. My name is Mundanara Bales, and I really do hope that you've been enjoying the guests that I've had, not just part of this series, but also part of the first series. So get on our website and have a look at the actual tab, and you'll find all of the guests that have been here. I really am excited to be able to have as many Aboriginal women on the program so that we can, I guess, for me as a mother of 5 children, I'm one of 8 daughters. I love when I see our women stepping up, running businesses, and not just the old kind of, I don't know, most people think that we should be in the kitchen either cooking or looking after kids. And I keep thinking, why can't my husband do that? So to see other deadly women doing amazing things, I just want to say thank you so much, Jess, for jumping on the podcast. As for everybody, I always ask them if they can introduce themselves. So can you tell or share with our listeners, but also our viewers on YouTube, tell us your mob, tell us where you grew up. I didn't even say your last name. So tell us your name, your mob, and a little bit about where you grew up.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. My name's Jess Morris. I'm a Wiradjuri woman. My nan grew up in Trangie. She was born and raised in Trangie. My nan's grandfather, he's a Wiradjuri man. His family's from the Lachlan Valley and around Forbes. And then my nan's grandmother is a Warwan woman from Haddon-Rig near Warren. But I grew up in Kamilaroi country in Tamworth. But when I was around 18, I moved to Biripi country here in Port Macquarie, where I've lived ever since and call Port Macquarie home now. So,
deadly. What about family in terms of you're married, you got children?
Yeah, so I'm married. I've got 4 children. They keep me very busy. I've got 2 teenagers and then 2 younger ones. So I had a bit of a gap between my 2 kids, between sort of study. I've got been to university 2 times, so I sort of had a bit of a break between, and been sort of working throughout, having kids as well. So, yeah.
And in terms of living in Port Macquarie, for people that are listening, especially not familiar with New South Wales, tell us about Port Macquarie.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful place. It's on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, a coastal sort of community. It's amazing to sort of live here and run our business as well. So I really appreciate that I live on Biripi country, and not being a Biripi person, but the amount of support that we have locally, and feel supported and accepted as part of the community here. So I'm very grateful for that.
And that's like the beauty of our culture, how we embrace each other. We take each other in. You can be strangers one day, next minute you're invited back to have a cup of tea, and we're family. And I don't think that happens with many non-Indigenous people. So talking about business, you've been to uni a couple of times. You've started this business. Can you share with me about your business? Let's go back. Did you always want to be in business, or was it random? How did you end up starting your business?
Yeah. So over the years, I've got a degree in mental health and then a master's of public health. So I've always worked in the health sector, and I think I just got a little bit tired of just sometimes the lack of cultural safety in workplaces that I've worked, but also feeling a bit more boxed in, sometimes not being able to respond to the needs of our community. So I just think over the years of learning, experiences, I thought, well, I'm doing a lot of the stuff, like I was sort of finding that I was successful with grants in organisations I was working for, and so I felt like I had all the tools, experience and resources that I could deliver my own business and support my local community here. So that was really the why for me to start up Strong Spirit Aboriginal Services, and I do that with my partner, my husband. So we provide cultural and professional services. So the cultural services, we're doing spear making workshops, coolaman workshops, working with elders, young people, just doing a range of sort of cultural services, but also cultural immersion as well for workplaces. And then with the professional services, it's around business plans. I do some consultancy work as well, but supporting other Aboriginal businesses. So I've always been passionate that if I can support other Aboriginal businesses or other Aboriginal people, then that also brings outcomes and opportunities to other Aboriginal communities as well. So
and
that's sort of the why.
All of the evidence is there in terms of for every $1 that you spend with a black business, the social impact equals $4.41. And I got that from Crystal Kinsella's book, Supplier Diversity Know-How. And I know she's a Port Macquarie woman as well. So big shout out to Crystal. In terms of Indigenous Business Australia, now IBA have a range of different products and services. So the social enterprise grant, how did you hear about that?
I just seen it come up as a grant opportunity, and I think stepping into the world of business for me, sometimes I'm a bit hesitant to jump into the space of just mainstream business networks. And I could see so many other Aboriginal businesses here in our region operating, but we didn't have that real opportunity to come together. So I thought, well, why not establish a strong women in business network here in Port Macquarie and for the mid-north coast. So that's one aspect of what we're doing. We're bringing women together where we can have a yarn about businesses we're delivering, support each other and empower each other. So we've held one event so far and it was just amazing. Just coming together, allowing those conversations to happen and allowing the women to thrive in that space was unreal. And then as well as the other initiatives that I'll be doing is some one-on-one mentoring for startups. So sometimes, we might have some of our mob just doing that more hobbyist type work. So then, supporting people to step into the space of registering the ABN and actually starting to do the business activities. So yeah, I'm supporting women in that space as well as looking at, I'm going to do a 4-week program for our young girls in schools. So introducing them to business, because when I was young, I don't remember business being a career option for me or it ever being discussed or yarned about. So yeah, I'm going to go into the schools and take other Aboriginal women in business here to have a yarn to the girls and build on self-confidence and provide that as an option as a career pathway for them.
How deadly. You got me thinking about what I can do here in the community that I live in, which is the Sunshine Coast. The Gubbi people are a very strong and very active community, and cultural tourism is pretty big, especially on the sunny coast. But I've never thought of going into schools and taking other black women in business into schools, which I'm on the board of a school in Brisbane, the Murray School. So thank you for sharing that, because you got me thinking about what else can we do? Like we're in business. A lot of us have, I would say, a bit of flexibility or freedom. Being our own bosses, we can choose, how much of the day we're going to spend on certain projects or how much time can we give back to community. With IBA, how has it been in terms of working with them? Have you gotten the support that you've needed? Is there certain kind of people there that, I guess, without that support, you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing? Or is it just simply filling out the forms, getting that grant, and then see you later? Can you share with us a little bit more about, your interactions with IBA?
Yeah, it's been amazing. So being successful for this grant is amazing. We've been able to implement the program here in a local community, regional community, which is unreal, because sometimes we see so much of the women in major cities and Aboriginal businesses in cities all coming together, and sometimes in regional communities we don't have that. So to activate all these initiatives in our regional community has been amazing. But also that collaboration with IBA, I feel like it is a partnership. You know, we're meeting regularly, talking about how I'm implementing the project. So I feel like I've got that holistic support in being able to deliver on the grant as well, but also wanting IBA staff to come along to one of our business events to see for themselves in real time. Like, I think that's empowering too, to not just fund initiatives, but also be there to witness it. Because at the end of the day, they can advocate for us as Aboriginal businesses for more funding and more support on different activities that we're doing in our local communities.
Deadly. For listeners, and even though and also for our viewers on YouTube that have never even thought about going into business, what's some advice that you would share with them? Whether they're women or don't have to be black women, but what would some of your advice be if they were thinking of starting a business, they've got an idea, and here they are listening to this yarn?
Yeah, just be confident in yourself, back yourself, and just take the plunge. I did have to continue working for a little while. So in November, we'll be 2 years into running Strong Spirit Aboriginal Services. So we are sort of somewhat seen as still a startup. So I did have to work the first sort of 12 months and just reduce my hours as we secured different work, because, at the end of the day, we've got to sort of still have money coming in to look after our families. So it's about just doing things a bit more less risky at first, but yeah, to be honest, it's so empowering. I've just loved the journey. I have noticed too, there's so much people willing to support you as well on your journey. I found that really beneficial. I've had mentors too, business mentors that have really supported me in this space. And working in public sector, I never had mentors like that around me. I never looked up to people as such in those organisations, whereas now I feel like I'm surrounded by so many amazing people. It's just, I've loved the journey. So if others can do that for themselves, and just those ripple on effects too into our families. Like there's times where I take our older kids into the workshops that we're delivering so they can firsthand see what we're doing, but also play a role in our business as well. My daughter recently come to our elders group that we run. So just her being able to connect with our elders as a young person is so empowering for her, and seeing that we're providing opportunities and spaces for our community that, I think it's just really good practical learning for kids and for us to be role models to our kids as well.
And it's such a nice segue into what I was going to ask you is, so your husband is part of this business. So you both work together full time?
Yeah, we sure do.
Tell us about that, because there are a lot of us, like my husband looks after the kids full time, but he's now come on board in my company as the head of partnerships. That's an area where people ask for, donations toward football competitions, a Murray Carnival, Corey Knockout. And then we exhaust the funding or the budget, and I'm still finding myself not being able to say no. So having him in the business to manage a part where he has to say no and not me makes my life a little bit easier. So we work together, but I don't see him as much. I'm still on the road a lot. Tell us about your partnership with your husband.
Yeah, so we're lucky enough, we have done a lot of initiatives in different workplaces that we've worked together with. So it wasn't uncommon for us to work together. So I think the benefits of our business is we've collated, my husband's name's Tristram, so he does a lot of sort of wood artefacts. So he makes spears, boomerangs, clapsticks. So he gets to do those cultural activities that he loves to do. So he's bringing that skill set into our business, but teaching others in our community too, about how to make our, such important cultural artefacts that our people have made for so many years. So that's really empowering for him to do something that he loves day to day. So sometimes it's hard to pull him in front of the computer. It's like you can't just be out in the shed all the time making stuff. So, but I think we balance each other out. Like he's really good at relationships as well. I just think, I think we're in it together in a positive way. You know, combining our skill sets is really good because I feel like we're well balanced in our business to do things very effectively. So, for us, it really works. For sure.
I think, for most people that are listening and saying, I don't think I could work with my partner every day, especially when you've got a business where you work from home. But I think it's kind of, for me, if you've got two different skill sets and you can bring it both together, and it's going to add value to the core business, then it's like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it gives us that flexibility with our family too. You know, if one of us is caught up doing the business activities, then the other one's there, and we've got that sort of calendar that we can make work for our family. So we are present for our kids while they're young, which is so important to our family dynamic. So as well as, mum and dad are being good role models to our kids and showing them that, it's even like we've got business shirts made up and we got some for our kids. So making them feel a part of it as well. I think it's been a great journey, and encourage others to do it.
It is. I actually got tour guide shirts for my little ones as well, so that when we go out and do these cultural tours, that these kids, they get up and they sing, they dance, they have a go at the ditch. My littlest one, Tiger Lily, she might have been about 18 months, and we painted her up and we went and done a show for a school, and the two boys were probably in prep in grade 1. And it was a whole school, basically a whole school cultural immersion with 10 tour guides from 9 to 3. So we broke up all these kids into different groups, and we had the painting section, the singing section, the dance section, and one section where they had chalk, and they were basically doing all different Aboriginal kind of art on all of the walkways through the school. So my kids were actually part of that. And my nieces and nephews that are employed as tour guides were part of that. So the strength in terms of our cultural identity and the pride that I'm now trying to kind of get my kids to be more proud of, because I grew up in Redfern and my mum and dad, all about land rights, went to every single march, and we're very proud Koori kids from the block. And now I live in a neighbourhood where you don't really see any black fellas. Mm. Very rarely do you see a person of colour, full stop. How important is it to you to make sure that your kids are growing up strong in culture? And what would you say to some of the people that are listening that might be still trying to find their feet? Because an organisation like yours, you're in it every day, offering that cultural and professional services, but our culture is embedded in everything that we do, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's so important, so integral to who I am as a person, but also, through our business. It's been amazing going into schools, connecting with Aboriginal kids in schools and supporting their cultural identity. And I sense that kids are very grateful that we go in and do different activities with them. Because we are an Aboriginal business too, there has been people from time to time reaching out, trying to connect with who they are. So I'm always willing to point people in the right direction of who to ask. Just recently there was someone from here that reached out, but we're not Biripi people, so it's about connecting with them with elders that may be able to answer their questions. So I think it's just about supporting one another, but also not being afraid to connect with who you are, because sometimes there might be something missing, and that can be the piece that puts, yourself together. I've spent a lot of time working around social and emotional wellbeing and, around mental health and wellbeing. It's so important that we are culturally connected and know who we are and connected with who we are. So, I think it's integral to who we are as people.
100%. In terms of the work that you do, how do people find you? How are you finding? when people reach out to you, is it because they see you online? Is it usually word of mouth? Do you go to the big trade shows like Supply Nation recently? How do people find you?
Yeah, so we've got a website. We're on social media, so Facebook and Instagram. So we share a lot of content on our social media platforms. Also word of mouth, now that we're sort of doing a lot around community, within workplaces, people are sort of, talking about us from time to time. So we get workplaces or different groups reaching out to us. So we're a fee for service organisation as too. So I find that allows us to be a bit more sustainable. We're not just relying on grants as well. And I suppose once one workplace has us in and we do some cultural immersion with them, then I suppose they're talking to other workplaces about what they did with us and providing that feedback. So I think it's a lot of it is that word of mouth and delivering high quality services, so then people are talking positively about you. And
of course, because you want to be here for a bit longer, so you've got to make sure that you are delivering. And now you're finding that you're just looking after the Port Macquarie region or the mid-north coast, or are you online? You got a national footprint? Tell me about your reach.
Yeah, at the moment, we initially started up Strong Spirit Aboriginal Services because we felt there was a need for more cultural services here locally. So that's been our priority, to be honest, to do more services in our local community. So we're sort of focusing in on that. With our business support professional services, we can have a lot more reach. So just recently I did some grant writing workshops in Central West, which was great. So from time to time, we're reaching out probably more in around New South Wales at the moment. But I'm also doing some consultancy work with other Aboriginal businesses too, where I've been able to do some national projects. So I'll be coming to Brisbane actually on Sunday for a project I'm working on. So starting to travel a bit more, but not wanting to do it too much.
Well, I was just going to say, on your website there were some grant writing workshops. That's why I was like, with these workshops, are you running them often, or is it just kind of every now and then? Just for people that are watching or listening to this yarn and they wanted to get involved, is it the grant workshops? Is it just kind of a one-off here and there?
Yeah, so with the ones I did out at Central West, I've got an online grant writing workshop coming up, but it was through the work that I was paid through a government department to be able to go into these communities and do some grant writing workshops with different communities. So sometimes it's relying on some different government departments to sort of wanting to build capacity in different communities or across different workplaces. If anyone's got any wanting any sort of grant writing or different sort of building capacity type initiatives, I'm more than happy to talk more.
I think that's one of the biggest things that people ask me. Do you know any good grant writers? So here I am asking the questions to try and figure out some of the answers that people want to know that are watching or listening to this yarn. So reach out. There will be information to contact you on our website or in our show notes. If there was any last words that you would share with somebody, whether it's about, picking up the phone and ringing IBA, what would you say to people who are still hesitant to take that first step?
I think just pick up the phone, have a yarn to different, whether it's contacting IBA or just talking to whether it's other Aboriginal women in business or family members that might be running a business. Just learn from them, take advice from them. But there's so much support out there for you. That's been my experience. People are more than willing to help, support, and people genuinely want you to succeed.
Yeah, deadly. Look, I am literally so happy that we've had this yarn, because I haven't had a grant writer on the podcast. So whenever somebody asks me about a good grant writer, what do you think I'm going to be doing? Flicking this episode to them and say, have a listen to this so they can reach out. And that's the beauty of having a podcast. I've got a platform to be able to amplify as many Black voices and Black businesses, to be able to share with the rest of the world, not just here in Australia now, because podcast, you can listen to it anywhere in the world or watch it now on YouTube. But more people are starting to see that we're doctors, that we're lawyers, that we're grant writers, and still parents and holding down our communities as well. So thank you so much for making time to jump on the podcast just to have a yarn with me. And I know that there is so much value in having someone like you in a community like Port Macquarie. Like you said, a lot of these regional places don't have the services that we need as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So love your work, my sister. Thank you so much for jumping on. And I'm sure we'll be in touch one day and see how we can work together. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
If you'd like any more info on today's guest, please visit our show notes in the episode description. A big shout out to all you Deadly Mob and allies who continue to listen, watch and support our podcast. Your feedback means the world. You can rate and review the podcast on Apple and Spotify, or even head to our socials and YouTube channel and drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. The Black Magic Woman podcast is produced by Clint Curtis.
If you'd like to know more about IBA and how they can help you to own your own home, start or grow a business, or invest in your future, visit iba.gov.au or free call 1800 107 107.